Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about the third episode of Suspicion, and it is called Stranger. So full spoilers from the start of this review as always. So third episode of the new Apple TV Plus thriller series, which started last week. They put up the first two and now episode 3 is up, and it's going to be one episode a week after that. So things continue. Obviously, last week's or the second episode at least was quite meaty stuff, quite exciting, because you had like the interrogation scenes, and it kind of set out why at least like the three of them who were captured and interviewed, why they were potential suspects. So there was some enjoyable like stuff going on in those interview scenes last week. And I also said in my review of episode 2 how I enjoyed the way like the Scott Anderson character was worked into it, and how he started inserting more like influence as those scenes went on. And I think Noah Emmerich played that really well. And in this week you sort of continued the theme of him and Vanessa, like the British representative who's like basically calling the shots. You see them continue to clash on certain things. But obviously at the end of episode 2 they were all released, but with the strategy that they were all going to be tracked, unbeknownst to them, but they're going to keep tabs on them to see if anything comes out that points to one of them being the person behind it. So I will say I wasn't as keen on this episode. I did think the drama wasn't as good, like there wasn't as good a drama, and I think there were definitely scenes that were quite soapy. I think definitely Adish, out of the three main characters, or the three main suspects if you like, I think he's definitely the weakest character. I do find him a little bit bland, a little bit sort of wooden. And I think some of the scenes with him and his brother, like when they're at like the carpet place, and because when he's first released, from his point of view, there's a lot of like, from the father anyway, like casting suspicion on him, excuse the pun, but like just casting doubt on him, and kind of saying, well, good guys generally settle down and they don't get up to stuff. So, there's some doubt over his innocence, at least from his father. And there's a little bit of racial like commentary going on a bit, because one of the brothers suggests, and well maybe it's the colour of our skins which plays a factor. But anyway, that side of the plot wasn't really, was pretty bland and dull. And you get stuff like, because they're really pushing the social media, the modern technology theme in this episode. It's something we see quite a lot of, as we've seen so far. But at one point you get like this gossip like blogger pursuing Adish, and it's a bit weak, because Adish just gives him like really easily and just agrees, okay, I'll do an interview with you, because he runs a conspiracy theory like blog sort of thing. But it's just a little bit weak how easily he gives in, and of course it comes to bite him on the butt later, because it's like he's like herding his way through this crowd of like press and what have you, because his image, and I think the thing must have got up online and went viral, and of course his family are like frowning on him again, the father in particular, and his like sort of girlfriend, steady girlfriend, potentially his fiance, they were thinking of getting married. She like dumps him, and big whoop, a little bit. I wasn't really that invested in that anyway, but I think this is, in this episode anyway, I think we start to see more like just very heavy-handed soap opera type storylines, a little bit like this, and it does feel a little bit dry, and like it doesn't quite have the character depth of some of these like really great modern shows, or it doesn't quite have the same sort of style or edge to it, because it's obviously quite a low budget show, and that's probably my other thing that it could do with a bit more style. But the Adish storyline in this episode is probably the weakest, and I think that character and the actor just isn't as good, just isn't as compelling to watch as, like, obviously Tara, played by Elizabeth Hasseltine, and also obviously Natalie and that actress, and obviously there's other good actors in this, as I mentioned, like Noah Emmerich. We get a little bit more of Uma Thurman in this, but it's just a brief scene at the beginning, because we find out that as part of a ransom, like this group or whoever's behind this is like trying to get her to tell the truth, or the truth as they see it. So again, it suggests that she's got some pretty big secrets like locked away, and we just see her like watching like the news coverage the next day of like the big unveiling thing from the last episode, because she was about to be announced as like officially like the ambassador for like this political candidate, like so she had a role in like government, I think, and obviously now this new sort of like them sort of disrupting the event and sort of throwing like suspicions on her character. I think they still go ahead and announce her, but it obviously means that it doesn't quite have the same sort of oomph, and it's pretty good stuff. I quite like that. I think that was quite intriguing, and that's something where, as we get deeper into the series, they could do some good stuff with that. They like the reveal of exactly what's happening and what is the truth. What are they speaking about? It's obviously going to be something where she's into some shady like practices, and yeah, that maybe morally she's not that of high character. Some human rights issues, something like that maybe, but so that's pretty intriguing stuff. That was solid stuff, which I look forward to seeing more of. But that's actually one of the big disagreements between Scott and Vanessa in this episode, because the Americans decide to handle the whole thing in a completely different way on their end, because they actually, well, first of all, they respond to the ransom by saying they demand to know more about what this group or this character, whoever it is, what exactly are you talking about when you make reference to the truth? We need a bit more detail. And Vanessa probably quite rightly says, you should never engage on that level with like the perpetrators, because potentially they can string it out and be asking for more and more along the way. So she's critical because of that reason. and also they mentioned Sean's name, like they put Sean on like they show his face and stuff, and again Vanessa doesn't agree with that. She's like, well, that's just going to encourage them to go into hiding, whoever's behind this now, and it will probably be harder. So, and obviously Scott defends it up to a point. He sort of says, he comes up with some, then this justifies this, but so that's quite good stuff. I think that there's a pretty good dynamic between those two and their disputes. We only get a little bit of Tara in this episode. I do actually like the scene where she comes back to college to teach for the first time after being released, and she walks in, and this is like totally believable that then they would prank her like this, because I mean it's not even a prank, but when she walks in, they're all wearing like royal family masks that like obviously reference in the video and stuff, and fair play to Tara, she takes it on the chin. She sees the funny side of it. So she does have a smile and a laugh, and she's like, well, I wish you lot put as much creativity into your essays as this, which is really good. But the reason it's quite clever though is because that becomes a theme in the episode. Although that's like a lighter moment and like a joke on their part, it actually does highlight the problems she's going to be facing moving forward at the moment, because later on the Dean has a word with her. I think it's in the same scene, like he sort of asks her to talk outside, and he brings up some of these like same concerns, or the concern of, there's question marks, and okay, you may well be innocent, but it's still a rumour that's out there, and there's still going to be all this stuff on social media, and it's the college's name and their reputation, which is sort of on the line and stuff. So he's like very concerned, and things do start to spiral a bit later in the episode, where she starts to see all these different social media posts. Again, I think some of that stuff is a little bit heavy-handed. Like, you can see what they're going for, and obviously it is sort of believable, but I think they're just pushing like the scandalous, social media angle a little bit too hard. But at the same time, technology is a big theme of the show. And the other sort of subplot with Tara is like with her daughter. She's like concerned about her daughter and the effect all these rumours are going to have on her. And we sort of see this with like the ex-husband and tension there, and the way he's like playing the concerned sort of parent, and like at one point Tara has to reassure the daughter that then it's not her, she's innocent, mummy hasn't done anything wrong, and it's fine. I think at the end it gets a bit melodramatic where they're playing like the typical soapy type music when you have a shot of her all isolated, but whatever, it's fine. Obviously I like the actress. So far I'm liking the character. I guess she doesn't have much to do in this episode, so I'm guessing maybe in the next episode or something it'll focus on her, because the main focus is Natalie in this one, and she reveals to her sister when she gets out and sees her, because obviously they all want to know what's going on and the truth, including her fiance, who does declare his support to her, declares his love for her. Again, a bit soapy with some of that stuff at times, but anyway, she tells Monique, that's the sister's name, in private, then she got into trouble because the company that she works for, the investment company, she decided, because they're sort of like laundering money basically, and giving like rich people like tax breaks and stuff. So she decided to like swindle some of the money for herself, is what it amounts to, from those clients. She like whatever did, sort of cook the books, that sort of thing, and took some of the money for her. And it is quite funny, her line, which probably you can imagine someone using this as like a good sort of argument for their innocence, is saying, well, they were cheating as well. It just so happens that technically their cheating is sort of legal. And Monique's like, seriously, that's your defense? So that's a pretty good scene. But she tells Monique the truth, and obviously they've been getting these texts which she says she doesn't know who they're from, but obviously she owes them some money. And yeah, she like has to pay off. And we see a scene where she goes to work to try and cover things up, like on the system, and her job is like hanging in the balance, obviously, because this thing has come out. And I think for the most part, the Natalie stuff is pretty solid in this episode. I think it's just certain stuff, like some of the stuff with the fiance, which is a little bit soapy, but overall it's not bad. It's pretty solid stuff. And what happens is, because they split up, the sisters, and Monique goes to meet whoever this is sending the text, at the South Bank, because they've arranged to send the text. And sort of Nat is sort of going to sort the money out so that they've got the money. And it becomes this thing where actually Scott has like a good idea, because he suggests, well, they're splitting up but follow both. One thing where it pushes credibility a bit is, I think, because obviously they're tracking them, but it's like it's not really like, you can't actually see them. I don't think it's not a trace like that. It's more sort of viral sort of thing. So when Natalie's at like the workplace and she gets all this up on the screen, they sort of, unless it's just saying it's like a hack, but I don't know if that's quite believable as well, then they would actually be able to do that. But anyway, it's just like, into the system, so they apparently see what's on the screen or what she's looking at, so that's how they know what she's doing. And so Monique's gone off to the South Bank. They arrest Natalie, and there's a twist in the tale, because for a long time Natalie is like protesting her innocence, and this is obviously before she finds out the hack about them not the hack, about them putting a tracker on her. And then even after that's revealed, she's still saying, okay, I still technically didn't do anything wrong, and it's not anything for you to be worried. And she's concerned about Monique. She keeps saying, I'll tell you everything if you let me know Monique's okay, if you like help her, sort of thing, because she's worried about her safety, obviously. And the stuff with the fiance where he's actually going to represent her, but she like sends him away at one point, I think because she doesn't want him to know like the truth. But the twist in the tale is then the firm who Natalie like swindled money off, who she was working for, Catherine Newman's on the board, like she's a big sort of investor, so that obviously draws a link to Natalie again. So whereas we thought, she'd sort of explained that away, and that sort of clears her of any wrongdoing, this suddenly puts her back in the spotlight. Now she claims she doesn't know, she didn't know that, so she had no knowledge anyway, which is likely. I mean, the way these things work, it's so many people involved in these things, and but it obviously does draw a link, so you can actually see this, and in the end, because Scott has this idea, which again, they're sort of, him and Vanessa are debating, they're at loggerheads again, is then he wants to sort of use like Natalie as bait, or I think initially he wants the sister as bait to like draw, because they're convinced that it's Sean who they're gonna meet, even though they don't know who the texts are from. But based on what they know, that they're sort of thinking, then it's probably Sean. So he sort of wants to use them as bait so that they can get to Sean, and because of like protocol or what have you, Vanessa sort of shuts that down. Again, I think it's obviously trying to show the differences in like procedures here compared to America, but so she shuts that down, and I think because Natalie agrees to like tell them the truth and help them out and stuff, then they go to rescue Monique, and it's a dramatic scene, because there's a crowd full of people, and Sean's there, and certainly the way it's shot, it makes you look like he's about to kill her, thinking it's Natalie, because I'm assuming he's never seen Natalie. But so he's got a knife, and the way it's shot is that he's there to take her out, basically. But then, sort of before he can, the car pulls up, and it's the police, and they sort of, take Monique in, so she's like saved. Now, just one thing on that, and you guys can comment on this in the comments, but I think it's possible that Sean's just been hired. So even if he was there to kill Monique, well, Natalie, technically, I think he's just a hired sort of hand. Because we saw a bit of that last week. We saw him like blow up the boat with that random woman in. And that just struck me as something where he's just taking care of business for someone else. He'd probably been paid to do that. So, not that it makes it okay, but I think it's possible that he was hired to kill Natalie, sort of thing, by whoever. So it might not be that he's the actual sort of guy behind this, or mastermind, or whatever. He could just literally be a hired hand. That's what I'm thinking anyway. But so obviously they take Monique in, and eventually they come back to Scott's idea, but this time to use Natalie, and that is then she'll go to meet when the guy texts her again, because obviously he still wants to get the money. That she if you let me talk to my sister, then I'll go along with it. You can use me as bait. I'll go and meet him. So that's the situation, and she sort of smooths things out a bit with Monique, because Monique, understandably, is a bit pissed with her. But anyway, I think we're going to see that now next episode, what happens when they set up this sort of meeting. The only other thing, and the end of the episode, is that there's another potential suspect, which is this student, Eddie Walker, who was also in the bar on that night, and they sort of track him through his credit card. I was a bit unsure what else they had on him apart from that, but there is a little comment as does the episode ending, and they mention he's a student, so I think he's going to be a student at the college and a student of Tara's, which obviously, again, it is sort of a direct link. So I think that's the way that's going, that they're going to think, oh, that looks a bit suspicious. So, but another sort of thing thrown in at the end with Eddie Walker. So, okay, that's Suspicion for the week. I'll be back with more Suspicion reviews next week. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. And I'll see you guys again later. Goodbye.